Everyone, and welcome to This Week in Hospitality Marketing Live Show number 497. I am your host, Lauren Gray. Thank you so much for joining us today. Um, wow, weather changes in the world, so forth and so on. I was just looking at some, because we will be traveling to Europe and so forth, and I was looking at weather. And it is amazing seeing all the snow there, and of course, seeing the snow in Canada and also in northern United States. Bad weather to the West Coast in the United States, but down here in Florida, it's just hot, as in late spring, early summer hot. It's amazing. But bring up weather because, strangely enough, doing some research right now, and I tell you, the show always mirrors what I do each week, which is why we do it live and why we have such engaging, persistent conversations on things that we do. The impact of information, weather being one of them, is so underutilized when it comes to data and to what we can do better to communicate with our guests. A lot of times the adage goes, when we have bad weather, we hope that the arriving guests don't know, and when we have good weather, we can't tell them fast enough. It's unfortunate because a lot of historical marketing has come from truth is great, but not complete truth. Share what's necessary, answer the question, but not elaborate. A lot of times back, I remember when I was working for a company, and they were adamant about not making any reference to anything outside of the hotel. And this goes back 20 years now. Wow, yes, 20 years. And the frustration, the blowback from that, when people discovered that they were so close to something that they would have enjoyed seeing, but because we were unwilling to share that information and have no information about it actually with even in the hotel, that they trusted us, and we defied that trust by not sharing it with them. So why do I bring all this up? Well, we're in interesting times. It's so easy to say persistently that we are in interesting times, but we are in interesting times. And we have a lot of changes to what we have been operating as under, both economically and politically. And I know I speak to a global audience. Our TV show, the channel, on the TV channel, Roku, Google, Amazon, Apple, all the ones that you know that we're on, the Hospitality Channel, and our app, Hospitality Channel. We go to 209 countries. 209 countries we actually broadcast to. So our reach being global means that why we talk so domestically about the United States is such a huge consumer economy, one of the largest consumer economies in the world. I think we still maintain that number one position, closely following by China, I think, and India and so forth. But the political climates are global, and the impact of what we do here in the States does, unfortunately, and sometimes fortunately, hopefully, impact those things that happen around the world. And of course, the conversations of how political policies are changing and so forth influences how business is being done. Those real changes are happening in real time for us. Airfares as prices are going up. Inflation domestically US is going up. Political sentiment as to between which country from where and for who and for what is changing every day as to people reacting to what the United States does, what their government does, so forth and so on. There's a lot of changes going on in our industry, and I'm not trying to be political about our show today in any stretch. Our industry has to work and navigate through that entire process. And for marketers, we have to be on the front edge, tip of the spear when it comes to how do we resonate and not be tone deaf with what we're doing for our properties, how we represent our properties, how we communicate with our guests about our properties. And there is changes in what amount of money people can spend, who has money to spend, what they're willing to spend, and also the temperament and tolerance of what they're willing to travel to and for. I'm not trying to be vague about those statements, but to be in my perspective of things this week, I've had to do a lot of conversations on various calls and group sessions of things, and clients included and so forth, about the climate, the economic climate of what's going on right now, climate. And there's a large uncertainty principle. There's so much happening so quickly in so many ways that have repercussions, like pebbles in a pond mentality, of things that are going on, that's hard to really gauge what's going on other than just tumulus, peak waves and lots of things, but no harmony to it. What I feel is that there may be a change in sentiment of international travel, both domestically outbound and internationally inbound, just because of the sentiment of what's going on. We see that politically in Canada in relationship to the United States. There's almost a growing surge of boycotting U.S. Well, there is a surge of boycotting U.S. products, but also traveling to the United States, changing plans that they historically had done. Here in Florida, a lot of things hit the news about how Canadians are just choosing not to come this year because they're so upset with the political change that's gone on. That being said, domestically, with inflation going up, cost of living, eggs being astronomically 36% higher at the same time last year to this year for cost of eggs, bird flu, whatever the causation of it, consumer price indexing and the cost to consumers in the domestic United States is strongly correlated in a negative sense with percentage of travel. There's a high impact. We have talked on this show many times about the percentage of gross net income of a person as to what their age group is, their family status is, as to what they spend annually. And that's divided up into the types of travel they tend to travel based on age categorizations, younger, more frequent, shorter visits. I wouldn't say midlife, but say mid-30s to mid-40s, you have more of a reduction in frequency of travel, but extensions of the time traveling. But the same percentages of money spent tend to run through the gamut of all demographics, only increasing later in life for retirees. Easy enough to say also that there is a lot of traffic from youthful travel, but not a lot of expense. The expense comes from more aged travelers, 45s and ups, and more of the money, even though volume-wise they're less than compared to the volume of traffic associated with youthful travelers. So you have to balance out your ratios of how much audience you get from the youth and how much audience you get from, anyways. There's strategies to all of it. Marketing is what I'm trying to say. I've still yet told you the topic of today's show, but I've talked around it. The topic today is that we have to stop selling and start talking about what we have to offer. We have been riding a wave of business, persistent growth. And for any of us that have been in the industry long enough, we have had sessions of time that have had persistent downscaling, downsizing. 2008 comes to mind as a good indicator of what it was like to have year over year over year degradation of business, not amplification of business. For those that went through the pandemic and the lockdown, the sudden cliff, obviously, of everyone falling off, and the persistence of that created a huge just ravine of business. And then we climbed out of that, and then we've been on this steady growth pattern for now 3 years at least, towards being able to confidently say each year should be better than the last, each month better than the last year's month over year. We're now into a we don't know phase. Now, I've often mocked at the fact that most forecasters always have an optimistic growth pattern for the next year. 2025 was no exception. I also comment the fact that after the first quarter of actuals, that gets mitigated down a little bit because of the impact of first quarter. Everybody doesn't give full credit to first quarter because of the weather aspect of it. Being, if you're going to lose, you might as well lose during those months. But there's still high optimism for the spring breaks and also the summer based on booking pace and so forth. We're seeing that there's a change in that demand now from apprehension or uncertainty. And so we can't be solid in our numbers for this. So we're going through the same arc now. This year is supposed to be a growth of 4.5, 4.5, 4.7% growth is forecasted. They're going to readjust it at the end of March. They're going to certainly readjust it by the end of June, and so forth and so on. We have to be ahead of all those curves. That's forensic reporting. That's telling you backwards what's happening. We need to be forward. And what we aren't doing now is that we're enamored with AI. We're enamored with what it can do for how we're doing things now. And people are not looking at what they need to be doing with AI or not as to how to change their method of conversation. I guess, since I'm famous for analogies, good ones and bad ones, this might be a bad one, might be a good one, is I equate how we're doing marketing similar to somebody famous being in the restaurant that you happen to be in, although they're at a different table, and then them coming over and saying that, thank you for buying my meal so that you had the privilege of being near me. And they walk out and the waiter presents the bill and you're sitting going, wait a minute, why'd that just happen? Why am I paying for them? We do that with our marketing. We tell everybody through our marketing what it's going to cost for the privilege of staying with us. This is our price. We don't talk about what we're offering. We certainly haven't shown what we're offering. We certainly haven't given anything to them. We've simply told them what it's going to cost them to be with us without any explanation as to the value proposition of that price. Now, they can look us up at that point, or when they're looking, they discover us and we're telling them the rate. And they can then have to go to the next step, and that is, well, is that worth it? Is that where I want to stay? And we put all of the weight of this discovery process on our users. Our whole marketing strategy is talking about rates and dates. And the next conversation is all about how cute we are and how perfect it is for you to be with us because we're the best and we're all this and this is all the things that we represent. Sure, but I still then have to look and see, is there somebody as good as or as better or that is better than what we're saying that we are? We have to legitimize what we're saying about ourselves as to whether it's truthful. Picture this, but the reality is this. I just saw on the Today Show about the dating apps, which are on decline, by the way, of usage. The swipe fatigue of people aren't what they show themselves, aren't who they are, and so forth and so on. We do a lot of that with our own marketing. We overemphasize things that are our best features and ignore the things that might be neutral or negative. Now, that's human nature. That's not to say we can change the stripes on the tiger, but we could be more in a dialogue with our users. Rather than talking about our rates and offers and how cool we are to stay with us, we should be talking about things like, how can we help you? Here's some information that's helpful. Here's some things that you might not know about that we'd love to share with you so that you make a good decision. And yes, we're offering this because these things help us look better to you as if this is the things that you like. Instead of talking about what rate we're offering and what special campaign that has no tangible value other than the cuteness of the title that some creative marketing person had done, there's no value, there's no meat to the bone, there's no teeth to it at all as to what you're giving them. It's the summer fun package, 10% off our best available rate, which ironically is just like your AAA, just like your AAA AARP, just like your locals rate, just like your whatever rates. It's a percentage, but you've stuck another sticker on it so that the verbiage of the offer matches the verbiage of the ad. That's it. There's nothing. You're basically saying, here's my bill for what it's going to take to stay with me with no value as to why that's worth it. Everyone's going to keep doing that. And they're finding tools with AI and ways with AI now to just say it differently, say it better, say it more, get more invasive as to the channels that something silly like PMax does, which, by the way, horrendously bad, yet to be fully developed platform and invasive. Helpful in some circumstances, very specific circumstances. Just personal grind on that one. The idea that you are walking in the door. I've used this analogy a bajillion times in the show, so please don't roll eyes when I say this again. It's like walking into a social event, walking up to a group of people that are having a dialogue about whatever, you don't care because you're not listening. And your first thing out of your mouth is, hi, Lauren Gray, hotel room rate revenue person. You can stay at my hotel for $250. How many rooms would you like? And everybody just looking at you going, what? We're not even talking about that at all. You step in and interrupt our conversation. And first thing you want to do is have us buy something from you. We don't even know what you're. Okay, so you sell hotel rooms. Are they good hotel rooms? Is it a great location? We don't do that. Most people do this type of marketing all the time. It's all about rate-driven exposure. We're at this price. We're at this price. We have this. Nothing about why. What's the why answer that you're giving? What is the how answer? What is it that you're listening to the guests wanting? Are you putting yourself in front of the guests for what they want? Having this discussion and where people are going to say, gee, Lauren, you share a lot of the strategies you share with me and I pay you. Why are you giving away for free on the show? It is and it isn't. Sometimes hiding out in the open field is the best place to hide when it comes to this, because so few people actually listen to the concept of the value of some of these things, even though they're very successful in their implementation. The idea of defining who you are best suited to talk to find out by listening and questioning and observing what it is that's most productively helpful that you can contribute, that's not just about your rooms and your rates, allows you to be brought into the conversation from at least even a audience perspective, where they're not looking at you waiting to pounce for a pitch. And then from that, them knowing who you are and the fact that you are, obviously, it's Captain Obvious, you're a business that would love for people to buy stuff from you, but you're also trying to be a good community person or a good representation of your market. Then you're in this audience and you're not being pervasive and pushy. People might begin to trust the idea that they're going to reach out to you and say, hey, I am thinking about going into your area, and you've been very helpful with sharing some of the information that has helped in that decision process. How does that relate to you? Is there something more that you can share about it? At that point, that is better of a engagement than the pushy rate and offers and why you need to buy. Because then it's solicited from the user, and then you can respond as a supportive answer to them. Now, if you follow the show regularly, which I hope you do, and several of you do, thank you so much for that. You know that this has been a constant theme of my discussions as to what you should talk about and to whom you should talk about it. So let's translate that into something more than just idle talk. Right now, I could probably predict every one of your all's promotions as you're running them right now. You're probably running a spring promotion for those that have spring campaigns that they want to run. And you're offering your rate and best available. And there's some aspect of spring in the context of it. But other than the percentage discount or value add that you've put into it to make it some uniqueness to the package offer, that's it. And you're running it to your feeder markets. You're running it to your broadcasting of your brand, your name, of who you are, what you are. And ad campaigns probably have 4 campaign variations, of which you probably have 4 ad variations of each campaign, 2 of which are probably identical, but they're being shared between all 4. And then for your non-branded, you're doing things about destination, things like nearbys, downtowns, or whatever is applicable to you. And you're running those basically on Google. You might pepper in some Bing, because even though the traffic's low, the conversion's high. And you're doing some social paid engagement related to exactly those same campaign promotional offers, blind to the idea that you're just saying rates and dates. I could probably say that most of the people do those. Now, hopefully, as a listener of the show, you've changed your ways in some ways over the years of me browbeating this as much as I do. But what about if you take the idea of, instead of broadcast marketing, you do communication marketing, which is, I want to talk to a certain select lane of people, demographically, geographically, behaviorally, whatever the categories of value are to you in relationship to what you represent for them. And you make a rallying campaign about a unique offer that isn't just about rate and dates. It's about experience and value. And value doesn't have to be discount. Value has to be what you get for being a part of what you're offering. And that comes from not just the giveaways and things like this, but the full value of what you can let them know about how to help with their itineraries, help them choose itineraries, help them choose the discovery of events, how to discover if there's no immediate events for the ranges that they're looking for, or the time frame that you're making the offer for, then what is it that is uniquely destination valued that people should not miss? People love to become educated on what they're interested in. They've discovered it, now they want to be educated about it. And that education provides value of the person that helped them in that education process. And from that, they enamor themselves with the idea that everything that they have planned is in relationship to the centricity of you being the core place for that. Remember, all vacations, all travel are anchored to the place that they stay in. Everything from where you eat to where do you go to what you do, all those things are based upon where you end up staying. So with that in mind, you have a heavy responsibility as a hotelier to define the value of what you have to all of those things. So in the marketing world right now, if you were to rally around a particular thing and dedicate campaigns specific to those things, and don't be lazy and say they run from the end of February to the middle of May. It's instead windowed to value. This campaign is for this amount of time because it's the most relevant to what we're talking about as a campaign value. And we're going to make sure it's highly valued. We're going to do a different campaign for a different time segment that has its own value. And it's not mirrored and mimicked from the first one. There may be similarities, of course, because of the proximity of time frames. But the reality of it is they're different. Now break it down into other categories that might make sense. This is a great family offer because this is peak spring break with families for something you might have value, or flip that to a whole other topic because you're different. It's peak spring break for young people at an affordable value for what you're offering for what you're nearby. Or it might be a great spring break for full families to enjoy, young and upper spectrum, okay, to enjoy because of what you represent. Whatever your product value is tailored to that particular campaign. And the campaign is not about buy now. It's not about, you always make it available for them to look at the action of what they want to buy. You never know when that transaction, that ZMOT is going to occur. But if you can go over and identify clearly what you're focused on and identify clearly the value proposition all around what you're focusing on, because of listening to what historically your guests have been there for, or social platforms that are about things that are harbored on those your destination for those dates, then you can become an active advocate of your market with the full intent that people are going to be centric on you because you were the one that brought the value to them. That is not about broadcast selling. That's not about, here's our rates from now until eternity, which are exactly like other rates we have, okay? That we just happen to put another label, stick another, put some lipstick on and call it something else. There's also the problem that nobody wants the FOMO of it, to miss out on what would have been a better opportunity with you financially than the one they took or the one that they followed to your site to do. If you mimic so many of your offers that they're basically the same offer, just wrapped in a different name, you create clutter in your offerings. Do I qualify for that one? Is that worth it to me, or is this worth it to me? What is that versus this? And what happens is a lot of the booking engine single pages, again, laziness, you don't clarify the full detailed value of what this offer represents. It's usually a very short snippet. Now, for branded hotels, you're already limited to what you can even do. Secondly, you're also limited to what you can say. And unless you laterally go into social media where you can expound a little bit more on the detailed value of the promotion, you're kind of stuck with a book window link that you have to put in your ads. Because if you drive it to your main page that you're allowed on brand site, it's usually a splash page of just the hotel and nothing about what the promotion was that brought them there, and they have to rediscover it. So the only way you can tie those two together on a brand site is to literally have the promotion code link that you've created for it, drive it to the booking page, engine function of that offer, and then you're limited by character count of what exactly you can say. Usually not enough space. So it's usually better to make an interstitial page. We've had shows about interstitial pages. Make an interstitial page that the promotion that you're running in the ad campaigns can run to, so that you can better explain the value proposition of what it is that you're offering and still bring them to the booking link that brand requires, obviously. So there's that. When it comes to independent hotels and people that have the latitude of controlling being able to be brought to your website, you want core content on your website first and foremost. You use that core content for the filler of all the things that are related to the content, as to the why, the events, the things, the hype of what you wanted to say about it. All that's within the page. It's also the page that's referred to in your social campaigns when you first start talking about it, well before you start spending money on it. It's the same page that pulls content for the paid campaigns that you had on your social posts. It's the same page that's in reference from your ads that you run on Google that are targeting the demographics, behavioral, or personas of the people that you're looking to identify. It's the same content that you refer to in all of your point of contact discussions as to the pages that people can go to for SEO and organic displays and functions of value for the event. All of this ties together in an arc of time from when people first start looking about those things that are happening, say for the lack of the consistency of an example, spring break, and they are becoming discoverable aware, they become educated through process, they become engaged with you for being the source of that information, and they begin to centrically think about their visitation with you as the source, being the place to stay, which allows them to make the decision for conversion. And then you amplify the continuous. You just don't, once they bought you, you move on. It's then you cultivate the relationship by sharing with them on pre-arrivals anything that's more helpful with that process. Well, you're coming at those times. Here's some things that may not have been mentioned earlier, or that just to remind you of. This is happening. That is happening. This is around the corner. This is a restaurant you shouldn't miss. If you love this type of food, there's a great restaurant for that. There should be pre-arrival engagement that brings them all the way up to your front desk. And at which point, for fulfillment from the operations side, there should be a very clear understanding of what that guest purchased so that the front desk can speak in the same language that brought them there as to, oh, well, it looks like you're in perfect time because of such and so. Were you planning on that? No, we hadn't thought about, oh, well, did you not? No, we just don't want to do it. Great. But at least the front desk is cognizant that they're just not, oh, thank you, Mr. Gray. Thank you. Here's this. There's that. Breakfast at 9, blah, blah, blah. This and this restaurant's open until whatever pulls out that way. Thank you. Elevators to the right. Next. Yes, when they're busy, it's hard not to do just that. But if they can be more engaged with the guests, so there's operations involved with the marketing too. So this whole topic of stop selling, start talking about what you offer is truly based on a full department spectrum of shifting just broadcasting rates and dates and get them in the door and then don't worry about them afterwards and just take, the place will take care of itself kind of mentality. You've got to get off of that mindset and realize that it's a full arc. Then once they've left, post-stay, okay, other than perpetual engagement with them at the property, make sure things are up to the stand, what they were expecting, hopefully in excess of that. But post-stay, connecting with them without being pushy as to thanking them for having stayed. Is there a willingness to share their experience with you? If not a worry, not condition. Give some incentive value. People's time is worth something. If you do this, then we can give you this should you stay with us again. Or we can send you a parting gift, which is strangely ironic that people actually enjoy these things. Now, each hotel and resort is different as to the value that would represent. Some mid-tier properties that you're basically picking up road traffic from between point A and point C and you're the point B may not have this as an aspect of their engagement process because really it's more function over form. But for destination or duration stays, having that reaffirmation of value that you send them coasters, koozie cup, something just fun that reminds them that they stayed with you and that you were thanking them for having stayed with you. And should they share their experience with you, they get something like that. If not, maybe you can intertwine it in your post-stay engagement in the future. Remind them too that you will always be available for them should they want to come back, and not to bug them, but if they could just happen to tell us when they might think about coming back or whether they would like us to keep in touch with them. Please let us know that is, and maybe what times they would be interested in knowing it. And we put them in that list of people that says, well, I'm not going to be back for another 8 months, but you can send me your offers and deals 7 months out, and I'll see, if that's something I want to be engaged with. That value, by the same token, everybody that's on the books, even if they haven't talked in a while, you might want to reach out to them and say, you stayed with us next, March of last year. Well, we don't know if, we know that you had a wonderful time or that everything was good, or I hope you had a wonderful time with us. We were hoping that you're making it back again this year because you stayed with us last year. We have this value proposition for you. See how this works? So instead of just selling rates and dates, broadcasts, demographics, regionalities, destinations, feeders, branded versus non-brand, you're tailoring and crafting who you're talking to with what you're talking about that isn't just about how much money they can give you. Well, that's my soapbox for the day. And yes, those conversations happened a bit this week in different formats and forms, different conversations, different conference calls, so forth and so on. So that is a very real and tangible thing, because in our time now of February of 2025, we will have shifting economies and we will have shifting demands to our economies. We need to be better prepared for being flexible with our marketing strategies now and get into patterns of performance now than to wait for the actual impact, which creates the lull that we have to try to recover from. And in so doing, we're doing what everybody else is doing at the same time. So we're keeping the high competition level because everybody is knee-jerking rather than proactively creating a relationship that is more tethered to consistency from it. So for all of you that watch on our TV channel, the Hospitality Channel, on your Roku TV, Amazon TV, Google TV, Apple TV, Smart TV, thank you so much for catching us on the show for that. And also for watching on our app, the Hospitality Channel app, also connected to our TV channel, which you can find on Google Play or Apple iOS. For all of you that watch us on our simulcast, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, thank you so much for watching us there on all multiple pages for associations that are kind enough to broadcast us globally, and also on their channels on YouTube as well, and corporate organizations that love our product that we work with and don't work with us, but they're very happy to share our content. Thank you for putting us on your pages and channels as well. We will recast this show, as always, 11:30 a.m. Sydney, Australian time, for a better replay time for our APAC friends, 11:30 a.m. Wednesday morning London time for our EU and Mideast friends. So with that, my name is Loren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time. And I look forward to talking to you all next week.